When I first heard about the show Atypical, I was pretty excited to hear about a show that had an autistic main character. And the first thing that I looked at was how accurate people felt that it was portrayed. And even though most of the feedback said that it was stereotypical and cliched, I still thought I'd give it a chance because, hey, every autistic person is different. Maybe I could relate to it. And after spending 2 weeks trying to watch all 8 half-hour episodes, I think it's a good show. For anti-vax moms. To be fair, Atypical as a whole is okay. The actors all give good performances, especially Michael Rapaport as the father. The scenes between him and his children do have some emotional and heartfelt moments, and some of the dark humor, which I was looking forward to the most, does occasionally get a good laugh. But like pretty much everybody, I judge most of the show based on the main character, Sam. There are some minor nervous tics that are portrayed accurately, like limited eye contact, repeating certain words in his head, having trouble staying on topic. But that's pretty much it. Aside from that, he's as big of a stereotype as it gets. He doesn't understand any sarcasm at all, he says everything as literal as possible, and he'll say anything that he thinks of no matter how inappropriate it may be, but it's okay, because somehow he doesn't understand the social cues. It's not his fault he grabbed a girl's hair that was blowing in his face, or broke into his therapist's house just to give her chocolate strawberries, or locked his own girlfriend in the closet because, well, honestly, she was more annoying, but he still locked her in. Now you might be wondering, gee, what do his parents, younger sister, therapist, womanizing best friend, and the creepy girl at school with a crush on him do? One thing and one thing only. Enable him.
It's so harsh in here. It's like, do you want your sunglasses?
No.
Boop, boop, boop. Does that sound annoying?
It's annoying when you make it.
Everyone is so afraid to hurt Sam's feelings that instead of telling him the cold truth, they all try to give him constructive advice by twisting words around to sound more warm and less, well, critical.
You know, I saw an episode on 2020. There's actually something called catfishing, and it has nothing to do with fishing.
And because they, of course, use phrases and sentences that are more vague and subjective, Sam still carries things out the exact same way he would have done before, if not something even worse. And when someone does give him the harsh reality that something's not going to go his way, he just breaks down and all of a sudden it's that person's fault, even though everything they said had logic, reasoning, and that his behavior was completely inappropriate. And the worst part was, it's his therapist who snapped at him, which pretty much shows the lack of progress that he's accomplished from her as a therapist. I give some movies credit like Rain Man, Snowcake, or Adam, where the main characters are a lot older and were raised as kids in a time period where autism wasn't really understood. But with Sam, he's an 18-year-old boy in the present day, and he has had access to therapeutic treatments throughout his entire life, so you would think he would have made some progress by now. Now look, I get that tough love lessons aren't always effective and are going to be misunderstood by some autistic people, but based on experience, these lessons aren't necessary. When they needed to, my parents sat me down, explained when certain situations weren't going to go my way, and that there was nothing I could do about it. And after hearing that each time, I decided to focus on how I could get more comfortable with each situation as possible, while still putting forward the needs of others. I learned not to make every single conversation about something I like, and instead I ask other people, what are you interested in? What are you like? Not every topic is interesting, mind you, but when it is, I get a good interaction with people. And it's ridiculous to see a main character have an arc about wanting to find a girlfriend when he doesn't even know how to find friends in the first place. It also doesn't help that the show's style of humor is really inconsistent. Pretty much all of Sam's jokes involve him saying something stupid or not noticing something important, and the joke is that it's just his normal behavior and supposedly other autistic people's behavior, even though so many side characters have these really exaggerated and cartoonish personalities. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against jokes about autism. In fact, I've seen other shows do jokes like that in an interesting and funny way. South Park did an episode literally titled Asperger's, where the main character Stan is misdiagnosed A, because of how antisocial he's been acting, and B, because of a flu vaccination. Sounds like an obvious joke, right? Well, then he's taken to a special center where at first all the patients with Asperger's are really fucking weird.
Here show the same social awkwardness that your son exhibits. Good morning, Mr. Mathers. Goodbye, doctor.
But once they're out of sight...
All right, Stan, listen up. We don't have a lot of time. You've been told Asperger's is real. It isn't. It's just a front that we use to stay hidden.
Wait, it's not a real illness?
Of course not. If there was a social development disease, you wouldn't call it Asperger's. That's just mean.
That is hilarious. The whole routine not only makes fun of how weird people think we are, but it also suggests the idea that, as opposed to having a disorder, we're just different as people. There's one episode of The Boondocks that very briefly features a boy with savant syndrome who plays one game of basketball in literally only one game, which happens to be a championship, and single-handedly wins and gets a lot of publicity as a result. This joke pretty much satirizes the way autistic people are glorified as geniuses and savants when, really, we're just smart human beings, and that's all. So if all I said about Atypical, are there any realistic portrayals of autism in movies and TV nowadays? Yeah. Very few, but there are. Temple Grandin stars Claire Danes as the real-life animal studies professor and autism activist. And there are two things that make this movie effective. Claire Danes gives such a natural performance that portrays Temple really accurately, even the voice feels like it's the exact same.
My mother pushed me to become self-sufficient. I worked summers in my aunt's ranch, went to boarding school and college. Those things were uncomfortable for me at first, but they helped me to open doors to new worlds.
The other is Mick Jackson's direction, which shows in a visually unique way how an autistic person's mind may work, how they analyze certain things, what they may think of when they misunderstand something. All of these are portrayed through distinct camera angles and pictures that she imagines in her head to help motivate her to put her thought process into perspective. The recently premiered show The Good Doctor's best thing going for itself is the honest and sympathetic portrayal of the main character, showing once again through the direction and Freddie Highmore's performance how he thinks about the human anatomy, what his routines are, and why he decided to become a surgeon. Sometimes the message is a little too heavy-handed and Highmore's voice is a little too high-pitched and robotic, but personally, the pros outweigh the cons. And I never thought I'd say this, but one of, if not my favorite autistic characters, is Billy Cranston from Power Rangers. Why? Because the focus wasn't about his condition. He had obsessive routines and strange nervous tics, but he'd break them if it was important. He doesn't speak everything as literally as possible, he has a wide range of believable emotions, and his autism wasn't his entire personality. He was smart, polite, a capable martial artist, and even though he didn't always know what to say, when he did, he bonded strongly with the other Rangers. So with all that in mind, what does it take to make a realistic autistic character for a movie or a TV show? Well, first off, try to be distinct. Most of the shows and characters I've talked about only feature high-functioning characters or people with Asperger syndrome. If you want to feel fresh and new, do some research on low-functioning or non-verbal autistic kids, or a child disintegrative disorder. You can explore some serious and important topics like how they respond to therapeutic treatments, or how difficult it is for parents to support and or pay for it. Plus, it's a good opportunity to show that even some people who are low-functioning are still capable of skills that are undeniably impressive. The other major thing is probably the most important factor. Involve autistic people in the formation of the character. I know a lot of artists back up their projects by saying they consulted with psychologists and researchers, and while it is helpful, their studies don't speak for everyone on the spectrum. It may be tough to ask the difficult questions about how hard things can be sometimes or to describe how their thought process works, but if you observe them carefully, you can come up with believable routines, and if their topic of interest is interesting, encourage them to talk about it more. They'll trust you if you show a common interest. To get a sense of what people with Asperger's are like, Diane Kruger consulted with Wrong Planet creator Alex Plank, asking him some undoubtedly uncomfortable questions that were necessary to understand his condition, and she watched him on set to see what tics she could replicate for her character. If we want realistic portrayals of people on the autism spectrum, we need to make our voices heard. If you're also unsatisfied with how we're portrayed nowadays, make your voice heard. Make a video explaining what you don't like about how it is nowadays. Do a rant on a message board or something like that. It's one thing for neurotypical or normal people, whatever you want to call them, it's one thing for them to represent us in a certain way when they don't do that much of their research. But it is up to us to make it clear that it's not okay. Guys, thanks as always for watching, and what do you think about people on the autism spectrum in movies and TV nowadays? Are there characters I missed? Whatever you think, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, check out my other reviews at noperfectmovie.com. And once again, thank you all very much for watching. Take care.